Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Fire Connect podcast. My name is Kim Schmanke, and I'm your host for today's conversation about mental health as a firefighter. We often hear that being a firefighter is the best job in the world. In fact, many of us wore firefighter costumes for Halloween and playtime, imagining ourselves to be heroes. But the job of being a hero and saving lives has its darker moments. In this podcast, we will talk about what we're doing in the fire service to recognize and give firefighters the tools they need to deal with those aspects of the job. As you consider a job in the fire service, talking about mental health and wellness is an important conversation. With us today are Seattle Fire members, firefighter Chuck Boehmer, Lieutenant Bill Hartung, and Behavioral Health Coordinator Kristen Cox, who are all part of the department's peer support program. I'd like to start out with you, Kristen. Tell us about your work as Seattle Fire's Behavioral Health Coordinator. What exactly does that mean?
That's a great question. Most people have no idea what that means. Behavioral health coordinator role is to support the peer support team, and Lieutenant Hartung is our lead peer coordinator, and he runs kind of most of the basic interventions and support for the peer support team. We have a team of over 50 people. And then for the behavioral health side of it, my job is to develop and implement and support programs that will develop resilience for people. And we're looking at it from a little bit of a systemic perspective. So we want to make sure that the organization is doing everything it can to support people's well-being, not just the physical fitness, but the mental fitness as well, kind of the whole package.
Firefighter Boehmer, Lieutenant Hartung, both of you have been with the department for more than a few years now. How has the nature of the 911 calls changed since you started in the department?
The number of calls has increased over the years. The quantity of difficult calls has also increased. New membership coming into the department, kind of the influence of not having been in as long and have seen as many of the calls, that also is a big influence and something that's changed over the years.
I would agree that the severity of the calls we go on have increased. Not everyone realizes that as a firefighter, you don't just put out fires. There's a lot of other things that we do that include overdose responses with Health 99. We have Health 1 and Health 2 that also do social outreaches. We have all of our technical teams and the different types of responses there. And like Chuck said, the increase of call volume and call severity.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask this question of the two of you here at the table on the uniform side. What makes a call tough for a firefighter? Lieutenant Hartung, do you want to start with that one?
Well, I think it can be a multitude of things. Sometimes it's just the nature of the call itself and how intense it might be. And other times it might be the accumulation of stress throughout the years of being a firefighter. You start seeing the same things over and over and over again, or that the types of severe calls that we end up seeing, it just accumulates on you and you have this stress that just builds and builds. And so those things, if not properly dealt with, can get to you over time.
Yeah, to add to what Lieutenant Hartung said, I think something that makes a call difficult is its connection to you, your home life, your work life, and seeing some of the things that we see. It doesn't have to specifically be this specific person or type of call. It's where you're at emotionally in that moment on that call, and then also how it affects the rest of your team as well. The other members that are on the call, the other fire department members, kind of seeing that interplay of your team. And if they have a hard time, you might have a harder time with it. And then vice versa, if you have a difficult call, it's going to affect them. Like where Lieutenant Hartung sits as one of the bosses, as a lieutenant, he's watching his crew as well as having to take care of himself on some of those difficult calls. So I think a difficult call isn't a specific thing. It's definitely going to change for person to person and day to day, call to call over the course of your career. Yeah.
I think one of the things that can be difficult about it is you never know what it is that's going to affect you. You can't sit there and go out on a call and think, oh, this one's going to be very hard for me. I mean, sometimes you can, but other times it's the after effects later of realizing what you just went through or what you just witnessed and saw or what you did, or that it touched you in a different way and you don't know how to react to that.
I think that harkens to what you said, Kristen, around programs building resiliency, and it sounds like that's something that is really necessary for dealing with those tough calls, whether it's an individual call or if it's the accumulative effect of multiple calls, regardless of their difficulty. How are things different from when you first started at the department?
Something that's very different from when I started, but then also from the stories that I heard preceding my career with Seattle Fire Department. People are much more open to talking about calls, talking about difficulty, talking about how people are feeling, and being open to those conversations. And certainly by no means saying that that's every single person is that way, but we're certainly moving the needle on normalizing conversations of when you have a hard time, when you've had a difficult call, if you're emotionally in a place that isn't great for you or your team is sitting in a bad spot, more and more people are able to be open with their peers or with their supervisors to say, hey, this is hard for me, or I'm having a hard time with something at work or at home. And I think normalizing that behavior is only going to make us healthier as an organization, as a team, and as servants to the community. It's only going to provide a better service the more that we can take care of ourselves and our team. And yeah.
Either of the two of you on that one?
I agree with that. I think normalizing all these things has made it healthier for us. And that's something that wasn't as prevalent earlier in career. I don't have as much time as Chuck on the job, but from the time that I started to now, I've seen a vast difference in a lot of those things that he talked about. And things that are different too, like we mentioned earlier, the types of calls and the severities, and there wasn't the high overdose rates that we have, and we went through COVID and all the things that went with that too, and so everything has kind of changed and shifted in a lot of different ways from when we started. But I think we have positives in the normalization of being a human being and being allowed to have feelings and being okay with it.
The fire service as a whole really seems to recognize that PTSD and a high risk of suicide is in its workforce. So, Kristen, when you came to Seattle Fire a couple of years ago, there was already the existing peer support program, but you've really seen quite a bit of change and growth. What's been happening?
So one of the things that Seattle Fire has been at the forefront of for over 20 years is having a vibrant and robust peer support team. My predecessor, Lieutenant Kim Leroy, and firefighter Mike Washington, who some of you might know, really did a great job in building a confident and really trusted peer support team. And now Lieutenant Hartung oversees that. And one of the things that the peer support's focus has been is to build relationships with people, because we know that when somebody is struggling, the people they feel comfortable turning to are the ones that they've already had some kind of connection with, hence the peer support model. They also have been pretty reactive, meaning when something happens, when there's a bad call, when we know somebody's struggling, then peer support has also reached out. What we're trying to do in the last couple of years is shift gears a little bit so that we can also build resilience before the bad call happens, theoretically. And one of the things that's involved in building resilience is making sure that leadership understands what trauma-sensitive programming might look like, and so that they're on board with that. And that's part of what we were talking about with reducing stigma. When leadership understands that there's some concerns, they need to know how to reach out and support their people appropriately, and also what resources are available, how to use peer support, how to use the various other clinical resources that we have. But then we're also trying to build programs that firefighters would like to participate in to build their mental fitness just like they build their physical fitness. And I don't know about you, but having worked with firefighters for a few years, if it's not fun, they really have little interest in it. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is have very participative, hands-on workshops where they get to do fun things, just like physical fitness. You know, you have to go to the gym, you do your thing to build your strength, your physical strength. But when there's something fun that can do the same thing, that's way more likely to stick with people, right? Same thing with mental fitness. So we're building some mental fitness programs. We have a program called MPEAK, Mindful Performance, which is really based on the neuroscience of how to get your brain to be operating at the top of its game. And part of that is to not only build situational awareness and the ability to be on scene and be effective, but also to pay attention to when you're not doing well or when something's off. So just like physical fitness, you go to the gym and you have your baseline and then you know when something's not right, and you know what you need to do to rehab or recover or what resources to look for. One of the things with mental fitness is you need to know what your baseline is and also how to keep that as strong as possible, and then to notice when something's a little out of whack so that you can do the things that you need to do in order, or even access resources in order to get back on top of your game. So we're doing that, and then we're also teaching people intervention skills, all firefighters intervention skills. So when they see one of their colleagues is maybe struggling or could use a little boost, how to reach out, how to ask if they're struggling in a way that's not too awkward and will raise the chance of somebody accessing resources. So all of those things are programming that we're kind of up and running, and we're building and expanding. What we hope to do eventually also is be able to touch families a little bit more than we have been in the past. That's a work in progress right now.
Anything you two want to add to that?
I appreciate everything Kristen has brought to the Seattle Fire Department in terms of the entire breadth of what she does, but specifically to what she just spoke about, the mental performance side is something that I've seen a huge benefit personally, and then on our team at Rescue One, just to see our members be able to, preceding calls, utilize those skills to build resiliency so that when a difficult call happens, you can recognize in yourself, but then also in your other teammates, when they start to, or you start to not perform in the way that you thought you were going to in that moment, recognizing, interocept your feelings inside your body and say, I need to take a breath and then move forward on this call. And I think that's something that has been pretty phenomenal that Kristen has brought to Seattle Fire Department, and will continue to be utilized and continue to expand that inside Seattle Fire.
I'm going to jump in also. One of the things that Chuck and Bill also have been involved with, we've got a team of about 10 firefighters that are trained in the mental performance coaching, and we're working with the recruits. And that has been something that has been really fantastic, a big bang for the buck. Not only does it help them build their mental performance skills during drill school, for drill school, but it also sets them up so that as they head out into ops, they have all the tools that they need to kind of pay attention to what's going on and then be able to do what they need to do to make adjustments.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have you, Kristen. This goes with the vision of wanting to be more proactive instead of reactive. And so all of these things put together allow us to be more proactive in our mental health and the mental health of all of our people. And these are things that have been asked for and wanted, and we're being able to provide that for everybody.
I think it's great that you're offering and getting right into the start of recruit school, because that's one of the most intense periods, and people who are going to be watching this podcast are going to experience, luckily, a 15-and-a-half-week, but very stressful physically. And I've also been talking to a lot of folks about the mental preparedness of recruit school. It's not just about your physical capabilities, but your mental strength. And so being able to come in and learn the language and be fluent in how Seattle Fire talks about resiliency programs and mindfulness and why it's important is really critical, I think, to the future success of our recruits who are moving into the program. So,
absolutely. I would also add that probably Chuck or Bill would have more information on this, but if there were one or two things that I'd recommend for people that are thinking about preparing to apply, what would you suggest, both of you?
That mental preparedness is probably the biggest part. Yes, you need to be physically fit and you need to be strong and you need to be able to do those things, but being mentally prepared and mentally strong, because there are times that things will beat you down, whether it's just in drill school or on the job. And people out there are depending on us. When they call 911, they depend on us to show up and solve problems. And sometimes that may happen when you're not mentally on your game. You might be distracted or might have other things going on. And to be able to center yourself and get your mind right and be in the game and be 100% on for the people that depend on us, that's important. So being able to, I would say it's even more important than being physically strong, because you have to be mentally there and ready to perform. So going through some programs like that, learning that resiliency, that mindfulness, can put you in a better spot for success.
It is a skill set that's been around for thousands of years. And I think certainly for any crusty old Seattle firefighter or officer, they have utilized those exact skills. They just don't call it what we're talking about, right? So I think that's an important element, is that the person that may not say, I am using these mental preparation skills or tools, they are doing it just in a different way. And I think for us to open up and put names to things and actually identify for new people and for people that are currently working, I think that's a very important way to give them a skill that they will utilize throughout their career. But to look back at the other people that have been in the career for 20, 30, sometimes 40 plus years, they've had those skills and they've utilized them, and they've also given the example to the members that have worked underneath them. We're just trying to now say, hey, this is what this program means. These are the skills that you can utilize throughout your career. I think it's something worth mentioning that for thousands of years, people have been using resilience techniques, and we're just fortunate to have a program that Kristen brought in, the MPEAK program, to Seattle Fire Department, and then have a training methodology for new people and for existing members.
The last thing that I would like to add to both of what they've said is, for any firefighter, but especially people who are maybe considering becoming firefighters, I would ask that they spend some time really looking into imagining what their least resilient day might be like, and then figuring out what they might rely on or need to rely on when that happens. And so not just your physical fitness, not just your emotional or mental fitness, but also your relationships, your connections, your support network. You really need to have a multi-strand support network. One of the things that I know sometimes is challenging is the shift work has some benefits, but it also has some challenges that go with life outside the fire department. And so investing in that early, investing in what you want your life to be like, not just in the department, but outside the department, is really important for your long-term sustainment of your career and your mental health.
This question is really for any of you at the table. How do you break through the stigma of talking about mental health in the department? Are firefighters receptive to these conversations? I think, again, the work you've been doing, Kristen's been amazing and well received. But, I also talk to folks, and some are a little more of that crusty nature. And some seem to be more receptive. So are you finding like a generational acceptance of these ideas as we have younger and classes come in, or are you seeing just it's more individual by individual as to how people are comfortable having the conversations? And again, how do we break the stigma around these topics in the fire service?
Well, I think it is individual based. You can't sit there and go into a fire station and think that every single person is going to be receptive to something the same way. We're all very different. So it is a case by case and individual by individual. But I think, as Chuck touched on earlier, that normalization. I talk about it a lot with my crews and the people I work with about taking care of yourself when you're off shift, having things in place ahead of time. I openly talk about the fact that I have a therapist that I see, and I have regular appointments that I keep, and it's just someone that I can go to and talk to and kind of download all the things that have happened, the things that I've seen or the things that have happened to me or I've witnessed, and have somebody to talk to about that. Of course, I talk to my family, I talk to my wife, but there's some of these details I don't necessarily want to share with her, and having somebody else to talk to and be able to kind of unload a little bit and take some of that mental burden off, I think is great. And it's been great for me, and I think continuing to talk about that and normalize that with people and like, hey, this is okay, this is normal. You would go see a doctor if something was wrong with you physically. You would go see a trainer to go and get more physically fit. Well, how is a therapist any different? It's just working that other muscle that is your brain. And so having that out there and talking about it in those ways, I think has made it a little more okay to talk about and okay to say, yeah, I see a therapist too. And that's okay. That's normal.
I'm going to jump in on that because what I think goes along with that is that there are so many different avenues that you can reach out for help, and there's a reason for that. There's not one that's better than the other. Whatever one is right for you is the best one, right? And so one of the things that we're really fortunate in Seattle Fire is that we have a robust peer support team with over 50 peers. We have 2 co-clinical directors who are mental health professionals that work with first responders and are culturally competent in working with this group. We also have the Union Health Trust that has hired 2 mental health professionals full-time. So that's an option. There is your insurance, your regular health insurance. There's an employee assistance program the city offers. There's programs that you can access that build your own resilience resources. What I think is important is that as long as there's somewhere that you feel comfortable talking to that knows how to help you, that's the best resource for you. I'm good with that. And so it's really important that we have a variety of different resources.
I think to Kristen's point, having more than 50 members on the peer support team, and also what Lieutenant Hartung said, the ability to connect with the gamut of individuals that we have in the fire department. Because one person is not going to want to, it's not a plug and play. You can't just take one person and say, you're going to deal with this person. You have to kind of match those personalities. And I think that's, there are people that have the skill set to talk to a greater variety of people. And there are certain individuals that kind of only talk to, one person, right? The eccentric personality. And so, the person who is very introverted is going to probably want to connect with someone who is maybe similar to them. I think that having that big variety pack of folks on our peer support team is pretty essential to being able to connect with everyone. And to Lieutenant Hartung's point, on the days where things are all going good, that's the time to make those connections. That's the time that you just catch up with somebody and ask them how they're doing, and find out what have they been up to, both personally and professionally. And then the days that individuals are having a hard time, they've already had that connection made, and so they know that there is a person out there that they can reach out to. They know that there's tools that are available for them, all the things that Kristen mentioned. And then the peer support application, which is another fantastic tool that's available to every member of the Seattle Fire Department to be able to find help if they need it. I think it's a testament to the hard work that Kristen, Lieutenant Hartung, have put into the peer support team that there are so many avenues with which individuals can pursue help if they need it. And not just help for a bad day, but just maintenance. Like Lieutenant Hartung pointed out, going to see a therapist is 100% normal. And that helps to maintain that mental health. And then also building a toolbox for yourself with the things that we are providing, or maybe things that other people explore and find on their own that help them from a day-to-day standpoint. Yes, you have to go to the gym. You have to do something to be physically fit to be a firefighter in Seattle. But you also need to be able to maintain your mental health. And so giving them tools to find those tools, or giving them tools to find what works for them is essential.
I think I think what's important to keep in mind, as Chuck's saying, we have all these tools in the toolbox, right? The first time you need the tool shouldn't be an emergency. It shouldn't be something that's held behind glass to break in case of emergency, and now you grab this tool and you don't know how to use it. So that's the other part of that normalization, is by having everybody familiar with them and being able to know what they are and reach out to them, talking about it all the time. You know, the time you should be finding a therapist should not be the time when it's an emergency. The time when you're going to use the Station 2 clinic, or reaching out through the union and the healthcare trust, or EAP, or any of those things, those should be stuff that you should know about ahead of time and maybe have used previously. You know, that way it's not the first time you're using that tool and you don't know how to use it.
We're really lucky in Washington State. We're protected, the peer support programs are protected by law for confidentiality. They have privileged communication, just like you would with a lawyer. And that now, over the last couple of years, has expanded to include other agencies that are, as long as their peer support folks are trained and designated. And there's some great training that's beginning Washington statewide, so that all kinds of fire departments, including rural and volunteer departments, can also access some of those resources. And I think that's a testament to, number one, people realizing that this is something that's really important, and number two, the humility to recognize that not everyone is going to feel comfortable with every resource, and we want to make sure that everybody has access. They're also beginning to look into how do we support families, and that's at a statewide level, right? Because I think that's something that's we've been a little bit behind on. We, the fire service, has been a little bit behind on, but I'm really excited to see that interest growing in that program as well.
Yeah, it sounds like there are like you said, so many different opportunities and avenues for people to find something within the department that works for them based on their comfort, and the confidentiality has to be a real benefit, and to opening doors for people who are worried that could be reported to their leadership or somehow reflect poorly upon them in their career, and that isn't. And then, of course, the union support through, and I don't know how unique that is to Seattle, but the health clinic and then the mental health supports. It seems like we're really well positioned as a department to offer a lot of robust programming, whereas maybe other departments are still forming those programs and don't have maybe the breadth of opportunities. So it's incredible, the work that you've been doing, all three of you. I did want to, you've kind of touched on it a little bit before, but for those who are looking at applying either this year or future years for Seattle Fire, what some advice you have for prospective recruits, just how can they invest in their mental health? You've kind of hit it a little bit, but just if you were to leave a few good nuggets for people of how they could be starting to prepare now, what would those things look like, and any other advice you have for them on their path?
I think exploring mindfulness, meditation, yoga, And some of those things we start to talk about, and maybe people get this like woo-woo feeling, right? Where you're like, it's not my jam, I don't do yoga. Okay, there are lots of other options that are out there. There's books, lots of different books on mindfulness that have been written for military service members, have been written for public service, that provide some great tools and perspective on why it is important to focus on your mental health. I think the MBSR, John Kabat-Zinn, is a great example of a person that started a program, the mindfulness-based stress reduction, and then from any one of these avenues, his specifically, you'll explore and you'll find other things that will work for you, whether it's a podcast, it's a different book, and finding something that works for the individual, for the person, that they can utilize in preparation for the fire department. But honestly, like, it'll help you in your career, but more importantly, it's going to help you with your life, which turns out that's really what we all have to really explore more, is to be healthier as an individual, as a person that's living in society. So with your family, with your friends, and your work. So I think the importance can't be understated of finding something that works for you. And it might be something that lasts 2 minutes of your day that will help just get you reset in a moment of stress, or it'll prepare you to start for your day, or you can expand that to 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The more that you can practice mindfulness, the more resilient your brain will become. And I think that that's been proven over and over with science. This isn't just, like I said before, this is not just some woo-woo thing. It's been proven to be helpful for people across the board.
I couldn't agree with any of that more. I don't know how to follow that up, but again, like he said, finding what works for you. There's so many different types of programs out there, but finding what it is that works for you so that you can be resilient and more mindful. I know that for me, it's made me a better person. It's made me a better spouse, a better father, a better worker, a better leader. It's benefited me in almost every aspect of my life. And so if I could recommend anything, it would be similar to what Chuck just said. And beyond that, I would say knowing what it is that you need for self-care. Because when you get a hard shift and you work 24 hours or 48 hours in a row and you've hardly had any sleep, what is it that you can do to recharge, to get yourself back in the game, to be present for your family, for your kids, for your friends, anyone else that's out there that matters to you in your life and that you care about? You want to be the best person you can be at those times. Well, what is it that you need to be able to do to take care of yourself? And that's different for everybody else. Every single person is going to have something different that works for them, but knowing what that is ahead of time and being able to access that quickly, and it should probably be more than one thing. You know, one of the things I like to do is go surfing. Well, that's not something I can do just every day.
Right.
So there has to be other things out there that you can do and access readily when you need to be able to recharge.
Okay, so you set me up perfectly for what I'm going to talk about, which is emphasizing self-care. One of the things that I honor and respect about people who decide to become first responders is that they do it out of typically a sense of honor and duty and service to the community. Part of our core values, the Seattle Fire, is compassion. And I hear people talk all the time about how that compassion is focused on the community and on each other, taking care of each other. And what we don't talk about as often, which is my, my torch that I'm going to carry till my last dying breath, is that you should be included in that. Self-compassion should be part of that, because that taking care of you actually is what creates the capacity to continue to take care of other people, to go out on the tough calls, to watch out for your colleagues, to be present in somebody else's worst day when they call 911. When we show up and you show up 100%, that's because you have done what you need to do to take care of you, right? And it doesn't mean that you need to be first and foremost 100% of the time, but we do notice that first responders tend to kind of keep bumping themselves down the list, and often they just drop right off their own list, right? And that's not sustainable. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over 30 plus years of working with first responders that they've consistently left the self off that compassion list, that self-care list. And that's when they end up having to reach out for help, because they've done that so long that they cannot sustain the situation they've got themselves in. And so if you're considering being part of a first responder career, I think that investing in that self-care practice, whatever that might be, and then investing in your support network, because those are the folks who are going to help you take care of you so that you can take care of other people. And then again, thinking about what your least resilient day might look like and what it would take to get you, number one, to recognize that so that you don't do extra damage unnecessarily. But then what do you need to do to pause, take breath, restore, recoup, maybe recover, right? And then knowing what those resources might be that you would take advantage of.
I love that, because self-care is something that no one seems to be really great at. And, people think it's selfish, but it really isn't. And in this line of work, when you are putting other people first all day for 24 hours a day or 48 hours in a row, finding that time off duty is really, really critical to restore those resources within yourself and for your family as well. Kristen, do you have any specific resources? You've talked about our mental health clinicians and other folks working the program, but do you have any specific things that people could look at prior to the application period or in this intervening time?
Absolutely. There's a lot out there right now. As in the fire service, people start to become more and more aware of what the cost is of that stigma of paying attention to your mental health. So there are a few documentaries out there that I would encourage people to take a look at, but there's also some shorter things, and one of them is a video done by a retired firefighter and retired Master Sergeant Marine Mike Washington, who is now one of our clinical directors of our peer support team. It's called Upstanders. It's available on YouTube. It's about how to take care of yourself, and it's from a very dynamic, charismatic, personal view. Highly recommend that. And the other one is a book that was written years ago, mostly for law enforcement, but really has been expanded, and that is Kevin Gilmartin, and it's called Emotional Survival for First Responders, and I highly recommend taking a look at that. And he talks about the impact on families, and really he's been talking about that for 20 years, and people are finally catching on to that idea that, there is a cost to this if I don't manage that, and I want to make sure that people know about that resource. And then, I don't know, I think you were also referring to a book called Peak Mind by Amishi Jha. Highly recommend that. That's all the latest neuroscience on cognitive flexibility and situational awareness and focus and attention and things like that. Anything else that you guys can think of?
I also like Widen the Window.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That's a phenomenal book.
Elizabeth Stanley.
Elizabeth Stanley. And I think if we could sit and list an entire bibliography on tools that are out there, but I think with the handful that we've mentioned, that'll get you going in the right direction, get candidates moving in the right direction, and also current employees. We talk about all of these different resources in a lot of our MPEAK workshops, and then also within the peer support network. And I think, all of those books and all of those podcasts, all of those videos get people moving in the direction that will be better for them and for us as an organization.
Bill, anything you wanted to add to that, or any favorite
I was thinking about the book Breath, just
yeah.
for access on just using your breath
Nestor.
and how that can benefit you. It's an easy tool to access is your breath and how it can be calming and put your mind in the right place. So that would be one I would look at. And then there's a lot of mindfulness type classes. Looking at UC San Diego has a bunch of resources available there for some of these mindfulness programs that we've been using and talking about today.
Awesome. I don't want to end this podcast on kind of a negative frame about the fire service. Yes, there are very stressful days and situations and that you're called to serve in, but there are some amazing benefits to this career too. So, do you want to talk to some of those great rewards and how those balance out those tougher days and what you found what you love about this career the most? Either you want to.
Sure. I think sometimes some of those hard calls, in the moment, it's very difficult. Afterwards, it's very difficult, but it is something that you can look back on. If you have access to tools to build your resiliency, you can definitely have an opportunity for growth in those moments. There are definitely places where people can get to having difficult calls that if they don't properly process those things, they can carry those things with them for a career and for a lifetime. And I think that speaks to the importance of talking about mental health before you ever start a career in public service, and also mental health just as a person in society, and the importance of it to be able to process difficult things in your life, at home, with your family, friends, and then at work. We're going to get exposed to difficulty. That's kind of what we do. We're going to go on a call on somebody's worst day, and we're going to have to perform. And I guarantee not everything's going to go exactly like you planned. It's going to be chaos. And I think recognizing that those things are going to happen before the call and doing the best job that you can in the moments, both emotionally, mentally, and then the physical performance, right? All of those things are going to interplay during the call. You can prepare for a lot of those things. You can react to it while it's happening, and then you can reflect on it afterwards. And I think all three of those parts are very important to do to process the difficulty, to also look back at some of the harder calls I've been on. I'm very proud to have been on some of those, on like things that maybe the outcome didn't turn out exactly the way we wanted, right? Maybe somebody didn't make it, but being able to look back at it and go, okay, what did we do that we gave the person the best shot? And what could we do differently the next time? And what can I teach somebody else from that experience so that they can have a better experience than maybe I did with those? And I think that it's going to continue to happen until the day that you retire. But I think everybody's going to retire at some point, and you're going to have to live with hopefully a positively framed memories of what happened during your career, and just being able to talk about those things, being able to access the mental skills and tools that we've talked about, I think help to prepare you for processing those things after your career ends as a Seattle firefighter.
To speak to some of the things that Chuck said, everyone calls us, not everyone, but most calls happen on someone's worst day. And I think while we have difficult calls and things that we have to be resilient for, we carry with us, there are many opportunities to make a difference. We go out there and we may save somebody, or we may make their day better, and we have a positive impact every time we go out there. Some of those examples might be saving someone's house from burning down, rescuing them from a car accident, or in some of my experience, working on Health 99 and responding to their overdose, getting them to treatment, and then hearing later that they've turned their life around. And knowing that that one person I made a big difference in. And that part can be stronger than all of the negative things that you do experience. And it'll stick with you and push you to keep going and keep doing it. The other aspect is you may not realize it, but you're going to gain another family. The other family, it's going to be the big family of the whole entire fire department, because I know that if I asked another firefighter for anything, they would do everything they could to help me. And then on top of that, you have your tight core family, which is who you work with at your station or on your shift. And you spend just as much time with them, if not maybe more, than you spend with your own family. And you get to know them really close, and they're people that you truly call brothers and sisters. And that is an unexpected benefit you have when you come into the fire service and have that tight, close-knit bonds with people.
I agree with all of the things that both Chuck and Bill mentioned, and I would say that part of that is a mindset. It's about adopting and intentionally resetting that growth mindset. Yeah, there's going to be challenges, and I look forward to them. We're up for it. We're together as a team. I have backup. I have people I can rely on. Yes, things don't always go great, but we do have ways of learning from that so that we can, do a little bit of post-incident analysis and decide that we're going to shift how we're doing things so that maybe we can have a slightly better outcome next time. Those are, again, intentional mindsets, and they don't happen by chance. You have to, again, invest in those and then support each other in that growth mindset as well.
Kristen, I know because I've been part of some of your trainings, and I'm a professional staff member at Seattle Fire, but I think it's incredible that we're offering this to not just our uniform members, because our fire family also includes our professional staff. You speak to a little bit about how we've included our professional staff in our peer support programs.
Thanks, Kim. I'm really glad you asked that because I'm a civilian too. And although it's an honor to work side by side with my uniform partners, I know that the professional staff members also experience unique stressors, not necessarily exactly the same as a firefighter, but so all of our programs are open to the professional staff as well. And we actually have professional staff that are trained in and certified as peer support members. But I do think that it's, I have to say it's been an honor to be able to work with people of this caliber and be able to support them. I will never be the person who's going to run inside a burning building voluntarily. It's not going to happen, right? So I'm doing my part, I think, and I feel like I can contribute by supporting them and building programs that can support them and their families so that they can keep doing the good work to support the community.
Great, thank you for that. Thank you to Firefighter Bamer, Lieutenant Hartung, and Kristen for sharing your work and experience with us. And to you, our audience, thank you for making time to join the Fire Connect podcast. This is one in a series of podcasts all leading up to our fall 2025 application window for entry-level firefighter EMT here at Seattle Fire. We hope you'll watch the full series and share with anyone else who might find it helpful. Follow Seattle Fire on our social media, particularly Instagram and Facebook, where we promote upcoming podcasts, our in-person events, and webinars. Also sign up on seattlefirejobs.com to receive emails directly from us about this upcoming application period.